The year is 2001. The country is Tanzania, on the eastern side of the continent of Africa, and the village is Karans, almost in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro. The village, frankly, is not much to look at. It's poor, very poor. No roads to speak of, a poor open-air market one day a week, a few small concrete block buildings and crumbling mud huts occupied by the many village widows. There's a small ramshackle church building and a failing, overcrowded government school. There are many malnourished orphans, basically left to fend for themselves, victims of the diseases that kill their parents, and that would often kill them as well. It's a sad, hopeless place, this little village. Enter Pastor Waireli Mafi. He'd arrived in the village the year before, assigned by his denomination to take over the small, failing church there. He'd arrived with no fanfare, but much resistance. Already some of the local tribesmen had tried to poison one of his children. But Pastor Waireli was not a man easily discouraged. He began to teach and to gather the local Christians, and together, he and his wife, Happiness, began to show practical concern for the widows and the orphans, knowing that that is one true indication of the work of the gospel. And Pastor Waireli began to avail himself of training, desiring to be a better teacher of God's Word. Part of that training was to attend regional workshops, where over 400 Tanzanian pastors would gather to be encouraged and deepened in their faith. Enter Perimeter Church. Leaders from Perimeter Church also attended the Tanzanian workshops, where they helped to teach and encourage the local pastors. And it was at one of these workshops where Pastor Waireli and Perimeter Church took the first steps in an amazing partnership. Pastor Waireli shared his vision with the Perimeter leaders, his vision to care for the village widows, who in turn would care for the village orphans. He explained his far-reaching desire to build a village Christian school, which would not only offer quality education with a strong Christian foundation, but do so in English, the Tanzanian language of business, thus giving the children an amazing leg up in their future lives. He unfolded his vision to these leaders of the wealthy suburban American church. They listened, and then they all prayed that God would have his way. Now, these Perimeter leaders, well, they knew a good thing when they saw it, because Perimeter Church's philosophy of global ministry might best be described as see where God is already working and then jump on board that train. And it was obvious that God's gospel train was moving through Karans, and Pastor Waireli was God's engineer. And so, the partnership began. It began simply with the widows. Widows in the village held no special place of honor. In fact, they were mostly disdained. Miriam Johnson, a Perimeter school teacher, describes their plight.
Widows in Tanzania can have everything stripped away from them when their husbands die. The land belongs to their husband, and so the husband's family can take the land, can take their homes, can take their farms, can take their children, and there's no one to stand up for them. They don't have an advocate.
Of course, the first step was to simply acknowledge the problem. The church began to show hands-on, practical concern for the widows. Milk goats were purchased for them as a sustainable food source. Then, an early Go Journey group from Perimeter realized that building simple houses for the widows would be a big step toward their independence. Since 2001, over 25 homes have been built for the widows of Karans. 3 of those homes have been financed by children from Perimeter School. The widows have, in turn, scooped up the village orphans. Until 2001, when the partnership began, the village orphans mostly fended for themselves, with little to eat and no place to live. The widows have also been encouraged to start their own businesses, with training and micro-enterprise loans from some of Perimeter's business people, who, on Go Journeys, have shared their expertise. There are now 4 markets a week in the village. The main road is being built. When Pastor Warieli showed up in 2000, the local church was a small handful of women meeting in a stick hut. The church had very little influence in the community, and if it was thought of at all, it was thought of as mostly irrelevant. Today, meeting in a new building, the church is full of women and men, and is considered a vital, vibrant center of village life. Pastor Warieli is revered in the village. To date, the local church in Karans has planted more than 30 other churches in Tanzania. One of the most remarkable changes in Karans has been in education for the village children. Before 2001, the children in the village had little encouragement or opportunity to do well in school. There was one poorly functioning government school with at least 60 students in a classroom. Most of the students were malnourished and so, of course, had trouble concentrating on their lessons. Between 1997 and 2002, only 5 village children were able to graduate from the government primary school and continue on to secondary school. But Pastor Warieli dreamed of the day when the village children would have access to a school which would provide quality education with a Christian foundation. And so in faith, he began. In 2001, the Karans Christian School had 2 small, ill-equipped classrooms, few books, and 2 old computers. The teachers were willing, but poorly trained, knowing only how to teach using the rote method that they had been taught. The students, wearing ragtag uniforms, still often came to school hungry. It was a noble start, but more resources were needed. And that is when Perimeter Church and Perimeter School became willing and excited partners in this venture, and the remarkable transformation began. Teachers and administrators from Perimeter School and from several Georgia public schools made Go Journeys to Karans, not to supplant the way they did things, but to come alongside and encourage the local teachers in new methods.
Wakati nina maono yananisumbua na sina njia, nilikuwa nimenunua eneo hili hapa ambalo unaona nguzo zake ni za matofali. Kwa hiyo Perimeter walipokuja wakaniunga mkono katika maono, wakanisaidia kununua eneo hili lote sasa kama eka 3, na baadaye nacho kijiji kikanisaidia, kikaniunga mkono kupata eka 1 pale chini ambayo ni eneo lile la michezo. Kwa hiyo kwa sasa tuna zaidi ya eka 5.
More land was purchased, more buildings were built, teachers were added, class sizes were limited. Eventually, a beautiful 2-story library was built. Computers were purchased and upgraded. More land was acquired, and playgrounds and playing fields were added. A windmill became a power source. A cell tower helped provide internet service. The children proudly wore new school uniforms and were provided with 2 high-protein meals each school day. And all the while, the students improved academically and were better prepared for further schooling and advancement. At last count, over 500 students have successfully graduated from primary school, and 100% of them have qualified to attend secondary school, the Tanzanian equivalent of American high school. Some of those have gone on to university. And all of this has been done in the context of teaching and demonstrating to these children the marvelous love of God.
My name is Zahadi George. This is our house, and I'm living with my grandparents. This one is my grandmother, her name is Flaviana. And this one is my aunt, her name is Dativa. I've completed Standard 7 at Punchmin English Medium School, and I'm now at Faraja Seminary, Form 1. I thank God because through your support, I've grown well in academic education, and also I've got a good foundation in Christian faith.
None of this transformation has gone unnoticed. Pastor Warieli and Godfrey Seuya, the headmaster of the school, have been named to national education platforms in Tanzania, and the school has become a national model and is in the top 15% of schools in the entire country. So, in practical terms, how has all of this come about? Well, partly, quite simply, this has been your tithe dollars at work. Part of this transformation has been funded by the budget of Perimeter's global ministries. But there is more to this remarkable story than that. Most of the funding for the transformation of Qurans has come from individual Perimeter church members and Christians from other churches in suburban Atlanta and around the country. A need was seen by the Perimeter leaders for an ongoing, practical connection between the families of Qurans and the families of Perimeter Church. And so, a child sponsorship program, Project Child, was begun. Perimeter families were given the opportunity for $43 a month to sponsor individual children from the village of Qurans. To date, over 750 children have been sponsored, and Project Child is staffed totally by volunteers. So every dollar given goes to the care of those children. The money provides school fees and books and meals and uniforms for children from age 4 until they graduate from grade 7. And then more opportunity is given to further support these children into secondary school and beyond. Now, graduation is a big deal at the school and for the entire village. The latest graduation, dignitaries from all over Tanzania attended. Sponsors travel from the U.S. to see their child graduate. Students from neighboring villages came to dance in their honor. Speeches were made, songs were sung. Previous graduates returned to champion the younger students. The blessing has come full circle. In many ways, this latest graduation was an exclamation point on 15 years of transformation. Project Child has been a remarkable success. Sponsored children have had an ongoing, rooted relationship with their sponsor families. To the sponsor families, these village children are more than just photos on a website. They are friends. Individuals and families from Perimeter and other churches have taken go journeys to Qurans and have met their sponsored child face to face.
Hi, I'm Linda Hodges, and my daughter Theresa Stanley has been doing mission work here at Punchme School in Karanse for about 14 years, and probably in about 2008 I started coming, and I decided I wanted to sponsor a child through Project Child, and I selected Martin. The main reason I selected him at the beginning, my grandson was born on March the 2nd, and Martin was born on March the 1st of the same year, 2001. And so they're only a day apart. and I feel like he's my grandson now. It's been very special to me to write letters to him, for him to write letters to me, to encourage him, and he encourages me, encourages my heart that we're doing good work here.
And now the technology exists for families to Skype and FaceTime with their village child. Some who have taken Go journeys have stayed in Africa to share life there. In very real ways, Project Child has made it possible for parents here to show their family that the kingdom of God is a whole lot bigger than just a church in suburban Atlanta. In fact, the church in suburban Atlanta has benefited as much from the relationship as the church in Karans. The kingdom stretches all the way from here, 8,000 miles, to a small village in Tanzania, where God is very much at work.
So what else do David and I do here in Tanzania? We do the journey. Currently, David is discipling 4 male teachers, and I'm discipling 4 female teachers. Those teachers are then going out to our secondary schools and discipling Punchme graduates in Form 1 through 4. And here's one of our teachers that I'm currently discipling, Teacher Happy. So can you share with me the impact of being in discipleship has been?
Okay, in discipleship, I have learned many things. I have learned how to care for my children, how to care for my husband, also how to teach others the word of God, so that I like to learn discipleship.
And that's discipleship in the journey here in Tanzania.
So, what's next? God willing, the school will continue to grow and mature. More children will need to be sponsored. Another library and possibly a secondary school will be built. More widows will be housed. More businesses will be started. More orphans will be cared for. More health initiatives will be added. The church will grow. The fame of Jesus will spread. And how can you jump on board this train? Sponsor a child. Sponsoring a child will transform you and your children. Take a Go journey to Karans. You will never forget it. So far, over 300 Perimeter members have done just that, and there are several trips on the books for 2017. Volunteer some time, some expertise. We can always use expertise. Take a long, delighted look to see what God is already doing in this village 8,000 miles away from here. Be encouraged and jump on board. A pastor in Africa has a vision of God's gospel train moving through his village. Then a church in Georgia jumps on board the train, and the village is changed, and the country is changed, and the continent is changed, and the world is changed. But it starts in one small village, and God himself gets the bragging rights.